Hey guys, Bored now, back with you with another one of his end of year list videos, and on this episode I'm going to be doing a special since we're well into the Christmas season. I'm getting into the spirit of things. This is going to be my top 10 Christmas movies, my personal favourite 10 Christmas movies. So hopefully you'll get some recommendations from this list, although many of them I think are well-known films, so chances are you've seen them, most of them before. But yeah, I might mention some honourable mentions at the end, but I'm going to get straight into it. So my top 10, and in reverse order. So at number 10, a film I've talked about plenty on this channel. It is the original Black Christmas from 1974, because really, what festive season is complete without a good old Christmas chiller? Really, Black Christmas, it's one of the original slasher films, one of the most originals. It was hugely influential, and it's very clever at using the holiday season and the backdrop, the innocent backdrop of Christmas, and just twisting it, making it into something really creepy and disturbing. Really good direction. It works very effectively in the one location. There's an interesting plot, twists and turns, some decent characters in there as well. It's really well cast. So it stands up as a pretty unique film. Very low budget as well. It made a bunch of money considering its budget. So sort of, was one of the leading lights as far as early slasher movies go. And I think for Christmas horror movies, certainly Christmas slasher movies, it probably stands out there as the best. So I think if you're looking maybe for something a bit more trashy, a bit more kind of a guilty pleasure in this sort of subgenre, then I guess something like Silent Night, Deadly Night will tick the box, or maybe something like Christmas Evil from 1980, which is a very enjoyable, sort of cheesy horror themed Christmas film. But that film does have a satirical sort of edge to it as well, which is really interesting. But yeah, a few suggestions there for good Christmas horror movies. But yeah, Black Christmas 74 is my number 10. And my number 9, again switching genres, but very much a Christmas movie. It is the original Die Hard from 1988. So Bruce Willis, the film that really made him a big Hollywood star. He's this classic everyman as John McClane. There's some spectacular action set pieces. Again, it's another good, sort of example of a movie where the premise is really simple and it's just kept to mostly the one location, but it's all about the characters, the well-written characters, and just the exciting action. But yeah, and obviously Alan Rickman, the late Alan Rickman, is just fantastic as the villain of the piece Hans Gruber. He steals many of the best scenes, many of the best lines. He's this really intelligent villain, really charismatic, just has an edge to him, and really one of the great Scream villains. I love many of the encounters with him and Bruce Willis's character. But yeah, it's a film with a heart. It's a film with a lot of energy and is really well directed. Very intense at times, but sort of ticks all the boxes for the classic action movie. But it definitely counts as a Christmas film as well, because it's a crucial part of the plot. The fact that he has to travel, to meet his wife in another city because of Christmas. And that's what leads to this whole sort of thing. And the fact that they've had this disagreement and potentially could get divorced. I think the film plays on that at this sort of holiday time of year. And there's Christmas imagery throughout, like the classic scene where he kills one of the terrorists and he sends him down in the elevator and he writes the message and he's dressed as Santa. It's something like yippee-ki-yay motherfucker or something like that. And ho ho ho, Merry Christmas, something along the line. But Die Hard stands the test of time. Great film, and always fun to watch, whether it's Christmas or not. So Die Hard's my number 9. My number 8, and there may be more than one version of this story on my list, but of course I had to have at least one, and it's A Christmas Carol. And I've gone with the 1984 version of the film, of the story. It is directed by Clive Donner, and you've got George C. Scott, the late George C. Scott, as Ebenezer Scrooge, and so many great actors have played this role, of course, in the multiple versions. There's some who you wouldn't think of as being good Scrooges, but apparently they are. I mean, I've heard people rave about the Ross Kemp Scrooge, for example. Obviously, we've had the late Albert Finney play him. Many different great actors. And yeah, I just think of this 84 version as one of the definitive versions of the story. I just think George C. Scott has that perfect look for it, that perfect sort of stone cold, icy expression. Very good at playing, very uptight and moody. And he has these sort of freaky, like, sideburns as well, which just make him really scary. He's just got the look, and he's a brilliant actor, or what was a brilliant actor, sadly no longer with us. But yeah, I think the fact that he is so convincing in that, in just being really cutthroat and nasty and just grumpy means that, when there's the change later in the film, I think it really pays it off. Which is what it's all about, really. You have to really build to the switch around in the second half of the film. And sometimes the more convincing they are in the first half of the film, the more you just enjoy when they come around at the end. But it's one of the classic stories of all time, of course. And a good supporting cast. You've got David Warner in there, you've got Susanna York. Really solid supporting players. But that's A Christmas Carol from 1984 at number 8. And at number 7, another classic, but an older film this time, Meet Me in St. Louis, starring the great Judy Garland. And there may be more musical films in this list. I'm not going to give that away, but this is certainly a classic Hollywood musical. It's set in this small town around Christmas. The family, it follows them over many different time periods, but it really deals with poverty, tells a touching human story. The songs obviously stand out. I mean, the classic scene where Garland sings Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas. And it's just one of those brilliant scenes that the musical genre can do so well, because it's her sort of gazing out into the wilderness, into the snow. And it's like she's dreaming. She's got this transfixed sort of expression as she sings the song. And it's just her being swept up in the right moment, and it captures that for you, the audience, her sort of dreaming and wondering as she's singing the song. And it's one of probably one of the most beautiful musical moments in cinema history. So yeah, it's a film that stood the test of time, and you can't really go wrong with classic Judy Garland, directed by her father, of course. But yeah, that's Meet Me in St. Louis from the 1940s. My number 7. My number 6, it's returning to Ebenezer Scrooge, but this time with a sort of a modern twist, and it is Scrooged from 1988, Bill Murray. So this is the kind of twist, the modern satire twist on it, where of course he is playing this really grumpy, uptight network TV man. You've got the romance with Karen Allen, with the flashing back and forth, and she's very likable, very charming in that role. And but yeah, it does go a bit more full-blown comedy than most versions have. There's some really great supporting characters I really like. Bobcat Newthwaite from the Police Academy films, he's very effective as one of the employees of the network who gets sort of harshly fired, and then he snaps in a very entertaining Bobcat Newthwaite way. So it's packed full of great characters, really good cast. It's a very, very funny film, a very sharp film. Bill Murray is perfectly cast because he does deadpan so well. But then there's just something about him at the end when he's like singing and dancing and getting everyone into it, where you think, oh my God, this guy, he's just a big kid. He just has so much enthusiasm, and it just makes that ending work. Yeah, I think with someone else it could have felt a bit too cheesy and a bit knockoff, but you just get into it. It's just a really fun ending, and it's a great twist on that story. It does something a little bit different with it, and it works perfectly. Scrooge is a really consistent Christmas comedy. So that's my number 6. So we're into the top 5 now. And in at number 5, we're returning to the Christmas horror movie subgenre, and it is Gremlins, of course. Just this brilliant family adventure film with a lot of comedy. It's very likable. You have the classic small town setting, which I think many of the best Christmas films are set in smaller towns, so it gives it a real heart, a real relatability. But yeah, and then you've got this much darker edge as well. You've got obviously these scary little creatures. One of them initially is very cute, obviously before he gets exposed to water, and he multiplies into these gruesome sort of creatures. But I think people do forget how dark Gremlins is, not just for some of the kind of kills and some of the stuff with the Gremlins, but because of stuff like, for example, the Phoebe Cates character when she reveals why she hates Christmas. I mean, that's a moment in the middle of the film, which actually I won't spoil for you just in case you've never seen Gremlins, but if you haven't, I mean, when you get to that scene, your jaw will be on the floor, because it's really, really dark, considering this is really a family sort of Christmas style movie. But it just shows you it actually isn't afraid to go dark. It's a lot of fun. There's some fun set pieces, some fun kind of black humor and kills, good characters, but it romps along nicely. It's a real winner during this festive season. So Gremlins is my number 5, and actually the second film, the sequel, Gremlins 2 The New Batch, is pretty solid as well. As far as sequels go, it's sort of up there as one of the better ones. It does something a little bit different with it, but Gremlins 2 is worth checking out. But the original Gremlins is a real classic. So that's my number 5. Into the top 4, and I've got sort of a tie here, and well, the reason is because it's Miracle on 34th Street, but I've sort of gone with both versions in a way because I think they both work really, really well in their own way. So Miracle on 34th Street, the original from 1947, and then the 1994 remake. And the original 40s film, is the better film. I think the storytelling is better. I think it just has a bit more of an impact, particularly because it's the original film. Of course, it's a great concept. The fact that you have Santa Claus being put on trial and challenged, and the whole theme of Christmas and the holiday being challenged. But I mean, 1994, it actually does a good job of updating it. I think having Richard Attenborough, I think actually he's kind of the ultimate sort of Santa, and I love the sort of like satire, not exactly satire, but the sort of play with the like capitalism, and it is quite cheesy, that film, but it works really well. You've got Elizabeth Perkins here; she's very like believable in that role. The young girl who's the one out of Matilda is very like cute and sweet. It is a moving film, and they do a good job of updating it. So I actually do enjoy the 90s version as well. So I've gone with both 1947 and 1994. A Miracle on 34th Street as my number 4, and into the top 3 we go. And at number 3, it's a film everyone knows. It is a classic for a reason, and it's one of those films, I would say, in these tough, hardened times that we live in, I think it's one of those films you just put it on once a year to feel better about yourselves during the holidays. And that is Home Alone, the original Home Alone from the early 90s. And it has just about everything. I mean, the John Hughes script is fantastic. It's perfectly paced, perfectly full of great jokes and great one-liners. You're really invested in the characters. It's got this really smartly thought out concept, which actually is very logical and it makes sense. You can totally believe then this kid would be like cast aside and just forgotten about in the mad rush to leave on time and what have you. And all the small little details. I think that's why the script is so clever, because it does make it like credible, and they would make a mistake and they would leave him, and they actually do the two sides of the stories very well, with the mother frantically trying to get home to get back to her son before Christmas, and you're so sympathetic with the mother and what she's going through, and it's so realistic the way she's frantically ringing everyone, but at the same time it's a nice coming of age story with the Macaulay Culkin character, where he's trying to man up and become the man of the house, really grow into growing up and stuff. It's a nice sort of metaphor on that. I mean, Macaulay Culkin, isn't a good actor. I think that's kind of the one weak point, but they get away with it because he just looks the part, and there's just so much good stuff in the film. So it doesn't really matter the fact that he can't act. Obviously, Joe Pesci and Daniel Stern are brilliant as the two robbers. They are this brilliant odd couple. And you just have so much fun at the end when they're just going through all these different stunts and set pieces and keep, basically all these traps keep getting their asses kicked. Really good physical comedy. They're really put through the ringer, and really impressive work there. But it's a film that pays off, and I sort of tear up every time I watch it, I'll be honest. So yeah, Home Alone. It's really stands the test of time. I've said that before, but Home Alone is a classic. So that's from the early 90s, 1993. That's my number 3. And my number 2, no surprise in that this is right up there, but not quite number 1. It is, of course, It's a Wonderful Life from the 1940s. James Stewart, one of the great ever actors, on tremendous form. He really balances both sides of the character and builds the performance over the course of the film. Again, it's a really cool, like, little small town setting. And it's just a greatly crafted story. It's one of these like classic family sort of stories where there's like morality behind it and themes. And again, it's really well paced and it's really got the two extremes. And what's impressive for a film which is like so well known and such a classic, is it does go to dark places. It's not afraid to go to dark places. Again, it's a much darker story than people would realise. And again, that's why the ending and the payoff means so much, because this is a man on the brink at one point, and he is so like distraught, so miserable, and so like put out by life and family. And he is on the brink of death at one point, of ending it all. So it's kind of this thing where you need that darkness, you need that sort of build and those challenges for the end of the film to mean as much as it does. And I mean, again, the contrast with James Stewart earlier in the film and at the end, him running around the streets with all this enthusiasm and joy, it does make you believe in the spirit of Christmas, which is what this is all about. But again, it's important to have that dark stuff and those challenges earlier in the film, because it makes it mean so much. And his enthusiasm and energy at the end is just, it's one of the great ever endings to a film. So yeah, it's a masterpiece really. It's a Wonderful Life at number 2. So you're thinking, well, what can be It's a Wonderful Life? What could possibly overpower such a Christmas juggernaut? Well, I'm going to tell you, and in fact I'll quote the great Ricky Gervais, in fact, because this is probably one of the most sensible things that Ricky ever said. And that is when he said on his podcast one time, the greatest story ever told is Charles Dickens and A Christmas Carol. But there's only one way you can improve that, and that is to add Muppets. And he was bang on. So it is The Muppet Christmas Carol from 1992, and I'm putting it out there, it's my favourite Christmas film of all time. It's even better than It's a Wonderful Life. You've got all the classic Muppets here. You've got Michael Caine in one of his best ever roles, having the time of his life as Ebenezer Scrooge. He plays it so well. The songs are cheery and delightful and catchy. The jokes are fantastic. I mean, just the peanut gallery and the commentary from the narrators are just fantastic, and it's just so charming, so cheesy and funny, and they just make it work. I mean, you think, how the hell are they going to make this work with characters from the Muppet? But it just shows you add that lightness of touch, you go a bit goofy and silly, you have a bit of fun, you poke a bit of fun at yourself, but you've got these classic lovable characters, and it just works. It's absolutely brilliant. It blows my mind every time. So there you have it. The Muppet Christmas Carol is my number 1 Christmas movie. I'll just do the top 10 again in reverse order. So number 10, Black Christmas, 1974. Number 9, Die Hard. Number 8 is A Christmas Carol, 1984. Number 7, Meet Me in St. Louis. Number 6, Scrooged with Bill Murray. Number 5, we have Gremlins. Number 4, Miracle on 34th Street, both versions. Number 3, Home Alone. Number 2, It's a Wonderful Life. And number 1, the Muppet Christmas Carols. So there you have it, my favourite Christmas movie, my top 10. And I encourage you to get in touch in the comments below. Let me know your top 10s. I want to hear your own lists or just a few of your favourites. And let me know what you think of my list. What should be higher, what should be lower. Just let me know your overall thoughts. And I will be back with another list video very soon. And soon I'm going to be looking ahead, or back, sorry, over the last decade with best films and best TV shows. That's still to come. But this has been my top 10 Christmas movies. And just in case this is my last video that you watched this year, Merry Christmas, you filthy animals. Goodbye.